City of Stevens Point Board of Park Commissioners meeting, recorded December 2nd, 2020.
All right. The December 2nd Park Board meeting will come to order, please. And Dan, would you please read the roll call?
Freckman?
Here.
Groholski?
Here.
Hall?
Here.
Kirsch?
Here.
McDonald?
Here.
O'Connor?
Here.
Shabilsky?
Here.
Shore?
Here.
Alder Slawinski is excused. Sorensen? He's absent. And Makira's just getting in here, so Zarazua is here.
Here she is. We'll wait a second for her.
We have a quorum.
Wonderful. Makira, are you on?
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
great. No, thanks. All right, item number 2, approval of November 4th, 2020 meeting minutes.
I'll move.
That was John,
Okay.
I believe, and
Yeah.
Mike second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in approval, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. The minutes are accepted. Item number 3, the update on John S. Groholski Park. And Dan, you had a lot of material in the packet for us.
Yeah, so as you'll see, there's 2 agenda items. I wanted to separate out and just provide an update on what's happened since some of the closed session discussions that happened at the Park Commission level. I've got good news to report on the park front. Since that closed session meeting, and I did send an email out, but we have acquired the 9.25 acres on Riverview Avenue on the north side. We just actually assigned an address to it, and it will be per the agreement forever known as John S. Groholski Park. So what happened with that is through some more meetings with the city council and the finance committee, we began the negotiation and worked through that process. On November 20th, the donation agreement was signed, and we were able to formalize what the arrangements and particulars were and the wishes of the family. And then on November 24th, the deed was actually signed by Judy Groholski, and the property was transitioned over to the city ownership for a park property. At this point, what the phase 1 and what the agreement, which is included in the packet, outlines is ultimately by the year 2026, at the end of the year, there's a phase 1 that must be completed, or there's a right of reversion that the family can execute or use to take ownership of the property back. And what we work through is trying to sequence that, spread out with the city doing a number of things internally, as well as trying to go off the contract and do some bidding on other things to try and make that green space and park come to fruition. So we do intend, now that this has come to conclusion, we've actually taken ownership of the property, to do a little thank you with the frame and sending a signed copy of the deed and some pictures to Judy Groholski and her family as kind of a thank you, just to formalize what had happened. We've done a couple press releases as well. And I just want to say again, thanks to the whole Parks Commission. And this was a many-month process and project, and through a lot of conversations and support, I'm happy to admit that we are adding a new park to the city.
Great, that's great. Yes, nice article there, David. I'd like to send a personal thank you note to Judy from the park board. Do I have your consent to put all your names on it?
Yeah,
Is that
sure.
acceptable?
Sure. Yes. Thank you.
All right, great.
Thank you for doing that.
Oh, you bet. Okay, well, thank you. Are we ready to move on to item number 4?
Absolutely. The only other thing I was going to add on this item before we move is, obviously I'll be bringing several things back in our future meetings about sequencing our capital budgets, all of that stuff that you, as a park commission, you'll play an active role in that. So there'll be many more conversations, but I wanted to give the good news up front here to start tonight. So
Thank you, and thanks for all your work on it, Dan.
absolutely.
So item number 4, the approval of John S. Groholski Park Master Plan.
So there's 2 documents in the packet. The one that is the actual master plan, the long-term vision for the park, is page number 12 in your packet. It shows the full color rendering of both the southern piece of the property as well as the northern. There's also a second document that has kind of a dotted line that goes around the southern loop. So I referenced this just before. The actual agreement states completing that southern piece of it within 5 years. That would fulfill the wishes of the family to fulfill the donation agreement. But the actual master plan, which is what we're always working towards, and we don't typically put just a time frame on it, was that page 12 where it shows the full southern loop, the possibility of having up to a larger parking lot of 26 stalls, the stormwater retention area, the green space, boardwalk, and the connections to the northern part of the property. Just so that we have this formalized and on the books. We've seen this. I think everyone's aware of this. It's been through several committees, but we've not acted on it separately. The staff recommendation and the family's approval at this point is to move with approval of this master plan and putting it on file.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have any questions regarding what Dan just shared with us or with the materials that were included in the packet? David. David, you're muted right now.
All right. Thank you. Could you remind us what the complicated part is in relation to, I think, one of those remaining properties there? Could you refresh our memories on that?
The only piece it's that we don't have is the northern piece. The county owns basically where the property runs to. So in order to connect it out to the Schrader connection or to run the connection up to the Portage County Health Care Center, that would require another approval from the counties. They have a committee, I think it's their Properties and Open Spaces Committee, that would have to approve of that. There also is an easement for the driveway access that runs down the center of the parcel. So what we would have there is we have the ability to cross it. We just can't block it. So there'd have to be a stop sign on both sides.
That's what it was. Thanks.
Okay, I think we're looking for a motion. Yes,
I'll
Mike.
move to approve the plan.
I'll second.
Who got that second? Was that Sean or John?
Wayne.
Sean, yeah.
Or so
Let's give it to Sean.
all right, Sean. Sean's got the second on it. Okay, it's been moved and approved, or moved and seconded that we approve the master plan for the John S. Groholski Park. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great, that passes. And again, wonderful. Thanks for all the work of you and staff and Rettler and everybody else, Dan. Item number 5, approval of color selection for Gerke Park tennis court resurfacing.
Okay, so this is the fun parts. We've gotten the capital budget through. We've got a cool project on the books, and now we sort out these options that are hard to narrow down. What you have in front of you, I wanted to give a real brief update. When we had this project approved, we actually were approached, staff as well as the mayor, asking about pickleball. And the question came up, could something happen in this facility where 6 tennis courts weren't necessarily there? Could pickleball be incorporated? So rather than just writing that off, we did meet with several members of that pickleball group, and we kind of wanted to just hear their ideas, vet it, go through it. And as we worked through the process, we realized that if we were to remove a couple tennis courts entirely, we can't service or serve the number of users that we have for tennis. So one good part of that exercise was that a lot of the groups came to the forefront that are using it, and it demonstrated that we have a very active tennis community. And we also realized that we have the ability to still serve both user groups with some blended lines, similar to what we've done now. There is still a group in the community that's interested in eventually developing a standalone facility, and even the tennis players, many of them have voiced support for that to happen in the future. But where we're at in this process is we've met with both groups, proceeding as we budgeted and we planned to have 6 full-size tennis courts. And what you see on these renderings is an underlayment of the pickleball, so multi-blended lines, so that the facility can be reserved and used for both options. So with that said, we narrowed it down to the two. We had more color renderings, but we narrowed it down to the two more standard colors. Blue quartz, or the standard traditional green quartz, which is there now. And staff, internally, myself and several others that we've looked at, we like the blue quartz option. However, it's a major change. So we wanted to come to the commission and say, please break our tie. If you want to review it, we wanted your input on it. It sounds like from the tennis community, a couple that I've spoken with, the blue seemed to be kind of an overwhelming supportive idea. And I think even some, and Alder Shore, I'd love your thoughts on this too. I think some people say that it's easier to see the tennis ball sometimes with the blue as well. And the color, the pickleball lines, we have yellow right now, and that bright light or bright color has not been good for the two different types of play, and it's kind of distracting. So we were looking at a little more blended option. So what you see here is on the green side, ultimately a real light green or a dark green. On the blue side, you see more of a grayish tint or a more dark blue. And really, it's just a matter of personal preference for us. We've been told by the vendor and by Rattler, who's helping us with the design documents on this, that the products have come so far. The fade should not matter. These are standard colors, and the product should stand up. So I don't want to bias it. We like blue, but we would be comfortable with either option. I would love the Parks Commission's direction on which option you prefer.
Well, I can say when I saw this, I was like, oh, how the heck am I supposed to choose a choice on this? I don't play tennis, but I actually work 2 offices down from the UWSP tennis coach and the chair of the Central Wisconsin Tennis Enthusiast Club or something. And I immediately went to her and said, hey, can you look at this? And she actually sent it out in a group text to the whole board. And it was unanimous that they liked option 1, the blue with the lighter pickleball lines. So I can say with confidence that the tennis people I am aware of really like option 1. So if that helps, that's the way I'm going to be.
It's good enough for me.
Thank you, Sean. David.
Thank you. So far be it from me to contradict Carlin. Let me say that off the bat. But I can explain the advantage of the blue. I don't know if it helps to see the ball as it's in the air, but 2 different colors helps to see where the ball hits for making calls. And that's a definite advantage. And I guess to have the lighter lines, with a little more contrast, that's actually kind of a nice deference to the other users, because that's not so much advantage to the tennis. But I was also glad to see, in terms of user groups, that now we're not only accommodating pickleball, but youth tennis, which is like red, orange, and green ball, I think, so that littler kids just starting out, we'll have the lines for that level of play. That's what the new scheme has, right? Is that half of them have the pickleball and half of them have the youth lines.
Yes, I forgot to mention that. So the 3 Western courts would have those youth tennis lines. Thank you.
Bob?
Yeah, I find it more and more often, I have to admit, I am completely out of touch. I have no idea what pickleball is. And so when we're talking about the pickleball court and so on, I'm totally ignorant. So could somebody please explain in a few words what it is?
Yeah, it's another racket sport. Ultimately, it's a very similar to a wiffle ball, smaller, okay. And then they play on a condensed, smaller court. Usually, a lot of times it can be played singles or doubles, but very, very social sport in many aspects. So the blended lines you see on the inside, they use basically and Alder Shore, I'm going to get the lines wrong, but the inside divider line, essentially the midcourt line of the tennis court, but then they don't use the same length distance. It's a shorter court on the pickleball. And then if you have a standard or a standalone pickleball, they actually have a smaller net. But what they do on a tennis court is tie the middle down shorter, and then they can play over a tennis net.
Okay, so what's involved in going back and forth on the same court between tennis and pickleball?
So
Is
in
it-
this setting, what they basically do is you can only play one or the other on the court, but they tie
Right.
the net down and then they
Yeah.
play, if they play pickleball. So they have to reserve their own time to make sure that they're not competing for that
But
court.
it's not a difficult changeover, I take it.
No, nope. It's just basically putting down the second set of lines.
Okay.
Wayne,
I guess, Dan, I have a question too. Refresh my memory on the Emerson plan. Isn't there a pickleball or a multipurpose court that will be incorporated there as well? And if that's the case, and what's a timeline on that? Looking at assets as a total amount, how does that Emerson court play into this?
Emerson court is a blended court with basketball hoops on the end lines, a tennis court, as well as pickleball lines. So really it's kind of a 3 multi-sport. Timeline on that is based on their fundraising efforts.
Okay.
So I think, but they're about to actually put a sign up. I'll mention it later, but I think they're hoping in the next couple of years to do a good fundraising portion of that to hit the ground and maybe break ground on that project.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, what about our tennis courts over in Mead Park?
Those courts right now are not, they have the blended lines, and that was one of the locations that got asked about or considered or mentioned to the pickleball group. What we'll have to do with that is we'll need to evaluate it and get that in our capital improvement plan in the future here. But that was a location that we asked if they'd have any interest, and even the tennis player said that one was less used because of no lights, or I should say because of the location and the 2 courts versus the 6 courts than Gerke. So they said if they had to choose, like if that were to become more pickleball, they seem more agreeable to it. But we do have to evaluate those courts for condition and things here coming soon as well.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Any further discussion, Mike?
Yeah, a couple questions to Dan. How many courts do we have in the city for tennis, and then how many are usable for pickleball? Are there any separate pickleball courts around?
In the city, on the parks side, we have 8 courts. So we have the 6 here in Gerke, and then we have the 2 in Mead. And we have 3 lined for pickleball already, the 3 eastern courts here, plus the ones at Mead. There's a lot more tennis courts in the city, but I don't have the full inventory. I think it's upwards of over 30 that are across the whole city. If you're taking like Ben Franklin's middle school, Spash's courts, the university. I'm not aware of in the city of Stevens Point any designated pickleball courts that are standalone. There is some in surrounding communities. I think Rapids just did one. Wausau has their own. I think at the Plover River Park, they've got a spot where pickleball gets played quite a bit. And but that's why that group that has the leagues is interested in trying to find a facility or convert a facility or potentially build a facility someday to be designated pickleball, because it allows some more tournament type play if you have those facilities. Like that's similar to these other communities.
Yeah, it really sounds like pickleball is a growing sport that a lot of senior citizens play in it. I guess it's really huge down in Florida.
Yeah, but it is growing. There's definitely a growing community playing it, and quite a wide age gap of people that do play it too. It's a growing sport.
Great. So.
I make a motion?
Yes, Mike. Or John. It was John. Sorry.
Yeah. Make a motion to accept the blue color as the choice of the courts.
Is that option 1, John, just for clarification?
Yes, correct, yes.
I see a nod, but I need to hear a second.
A second.
It was Sean seconded. Good. All those in favor of blue for the tennis courts signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we'll have blue tennis courts. Dan likes blue. He told us. All right, great. Item number 6, approval of Bukolt Park Playground replacement location. You all saw the notes in the packet, I'm sure, and Dan can enlighten us further.
I wanted to provide a little update since I put the packet out on this as well. We visited the site. The challenges we have with the existing playground is there's a electric line over top of it, as well as it's in a low spot that floods every time it rains. You actually see the ducks and stuff that'll be in there swimming around it. So we wanted to address that when we had this project come up. So when we looked at the site, we met with Rattler and we went down and walked, and we are favoring option 2. And just in case somebody doesn't have it open, I'll share the screen. But we want the biggest element that we need to do with option 2. This rendering is not specific to what the playground will be. This is really just a placeholder. There is some mature pine stand that we will not affect. We need to make sure we don't affect up in this location. And that's why I took a couple photos so I could show you. If they're not great, I'll zoom in a little bit. The playground will be designed so that we can tweak it. So it's not necessarily square or oval, but it kind of follows what we have to have for the play fall zones of the equipment. And we're working with Little Tykes equipment. We'll work that out with the consultant to lay this out. So this was just to kind of show the area we were looking at. The reason we like this location is the angled parking. It'll allow us somebody that would have maybe mobility impairment to be able to park and utilize the accessible walkway to get to our playground that will also have an accessible walkway around it. We're looking at certified wood fibers. And then this location is in a higher spot, and you'll see here there's a drain, actually, storm sewer, that's in this location that we believe we can tie into versus this lower spot that we're in here. So what we wanted to show is, originally we thought there's one tree for sure that we know will impact. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. We have a tree that we lost the top on. You can kind of see the wound here. And Todd left this tree. The city forester has been involved with this project as he's overseeing it as a playground. This tree we've left because it's not in a situation where it has to come down by any means. However, the long-term future of this tree, just given what it's gone through, we identified this as one that we would take if we placed this playground here. There's 2 real small ones that are underneath a couple of the large canopies, canopied pine trees back in this location. We believe we can actually slide it away from those trees and still save them. However, with the city forester, when we walked it, we identified that would be the extent of what we could do. So we know 1 for sure if we were to go here. I think originally I had mentioned 5. We're talking 3 is really what we're looking at. And again, Todd would be involved with this from the beginning. Looking at the area, we have horseshoe pits here. That's what this location is with the snow. We're not looking to block the building, so we don't want to slide the entire playground over. However, we believe there's enough room that without this tree, we can configure this so that we don't get too far closer to the building or behind the building, but we could still utilize this open space, as well as still have a walkway to keep the kids away from the traffic. One negative down here, as you can see, is that you're basically driving right by where the children are playing. So with that said, we do have to do some topographical work with the site, making sure that we design it appropriately. But rather than getting further down this design train, I wanted to bring it to the commission to get input and approval. We would like to see this as our preferred option. If that option didn't work, we would then investigate these other 2. There is a swing set and things over here, which is why we looked at this. This site's a little higher. However, the parking constraints and the access does not make this ideal either. Really, this would probably be the best second option if we can fix the drainage. So what I would looking for approval tonight, if the commission's agreeable, would be to investigate and place the playground here. And if we couldn't place it here, for staff to have the ability to evaluate these 2 options for a suitable alternative, but to proceed with this as our preferred location.
Hey, Dan, can you point out where the lodge is right now?
Right here is the lodge.
Okay.
So we do not intend to get this close. They just took a standard kind of concept and plopped it down. I intend for this gap to be further over and this to come down a little further south.
One thing I would say that I think about right away looking at this is that if you're having a private event, wedding, whatever, and you have that lodge, and then there's a playground parked right next to your event with all the kids that are going to, attend the park are in the playground, then you have all these kids running around in your event. Whereas if it was across the road by the other swing set, then, you could go to the playground and play and it'd be away from whatever private event's going on at the lodge. That was the first thing I thought about.
Good. Hey, Dan?
It's John.
What about the thought over by the ball diamond? I mean, if we're talking parking and roads, and this issue brought up about renting the building, would we be better to move it out? We have more area, sort of by the boat landing to the east of the ball diamond. Isn't there quite a large area back there?
I can bring up an aerial map. So are you talking kind of near where a lot of the boat traffic and parking kind of takes place, John?
Correct. Well, correct. But haven't we been talking about possibly putting more parking in that area for the boats and everything? I mean, we have that whole field pretty much back to back where the street department is. I mean, would that be a better area, or what is the long-term plan of where the lodge is? We put a trail in there now. Do we want to move it, have a different thought of that area?
So I think a couple things. The lodge, I am not familiar with any plans to move the lodge piece, but that would remain. I from some of the conversations I've had from in just kind of going through it, some said the playground close aids some of the events because then the children at the events are able to get to the playground close while parents are doing that. I think there's two ways of looking at that. We did not investigate this area primarily, I'm told, and because of observations. When there is a large ball field game, then everybody parks in here. That's kind of where it fills up, as well as during the summer, this area is used for overflow parking. If the commission was desirous, we could evaluate this. As you know, there's a desire someday to maybe see this facility not be there, but who knows how long that would be or if that'll ever happen. But we did not look at this section. As you recall, the skate park will expand someday right here. Mm-hmm. That's how their next phase is called for. So you'd be looking in this location. So again, right now that's primarily used for overflow parking.
So what size of park are we putting? I guess, are we going to be pulling people off of Cash Playground? Are we going to be something that size? Obviously not that size, but similar to that, where we'd have people coming here versus going there?
It's not as big as Cash's, and it's not a wheelchair, 100% wheelchair accessible playground. There's a transfer station. It'll be a larger than neighborhood playground, however, smaller. So I would call it between something very similar to what Piffner just received, right in that vicinity of size. So bigger than what's in Bukolt right now, very similar to the Piffner. I can show you, I'll try to load this. We're not done kind of laying it out, but I could show you an early rendering kind of rendition of it if you'd like to see it here real quick.
I guess I agree with the point of, I've taken my grandkids to the one in Bukolt, and when there's activities there, I can see the point of, people wanting their kids there, but at the same time, I didn't feel like I was welcome there because they had the beer table not too far away. Was I part of the group? I guess I felt, should I be here at this time when there's somebody renting the lodge? So
yeah, that was the way I felt. I had the same experience.
Yeah.
I get.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I
guess I have a question, Dan. And
well, I just want to, so I called Dan today about this same issue as far as whether it's too close to the lodge. And, I had like my wedding reception there, and I'm just imagining like if people with kids were there and someone is having an event, how comfortable would they feel? But I would say, so I went to Bukolt today, and in looking at it, it actually feels like that area would feel like less imposing on a group that's in the lodge, just because of where the door is for the lodge. That kind of leads out to where the current playground is. And I feel like this would kind of be like, it's kind of after, it is after the lodge if you're looking at the flow of traffic and everything. So I think there would be a lot of value in physically going there and looking at it, and having maybe, I don't know if Rettler is able to, provide like showing us like what those dimensions are going to look like in the real space.
One other question, Dan.
It's John.
Yes, Horseshoe. Would the Horseshoe people ever want to expand that area where would that be a preferable place for horseshoes? Do they rent that? Do they use that? What's that sport?
We have not rented that location. So Fred Lane is really the central contact for horseshoes. They use Mead Park right now. They are looking for a location to expand. They've not asked for this location. They've got some big plans if they can find it down the road. But Mead is where all of the rentable tournaments that where we would want to relocate these so this attraction could happen. And we were looking at potentially the south side. To Alder Zerzua's question, we do have some time on this because playgrounds don't get installed obviously for good weather. The only piece that we're looking to do is try to do the topo work. So I would say if there's interest in the commission of seeing another location, I'm not opposed. We can go back and do another little bit of a layout and bring it back in the future. Or if you wanted to, as commission, get a chance between now and the next meeting to go down there and see it. This, to McCure's point, we like this location because it is on the other side and we can provide 2 points of access, one off the parking and one potentially off the other location. But again, we could look at another spot. The other across the roadway, though, just recall that, quite a bit of your users would probably have to walk the bridge then to get to it, because we don't necessarily have designated parking over there at this point. Not to say that that couldn't go down the road, but that's one element we'd have to consider.
I definitely like the first area there. You know, I think it's, you know, a lot of people that rent that lodge, there's kids out there, and you can send them out there and they're not so far away. I wouldn't want them walking across that bridge, you know, and being close to the river. I think it's easier for parents to keep an eye on their kids if they're playing, if they're using that lodge too. So.
One other element I would add, just so you're aware too, is that, you know, rental season is definitely busy. Friday, Saturday, and Sundays are busy, but there is, you know, really 4/7 of the week that's not the case too. So, and I'm not, you know, advocating saying that it's not important, but, you know, your majority of the week, this location is pretty much open and vacant. And then as you get into coming out of spring and then also going into fall, they let up quite a bit. So June, July, and August are your main, in late May, when you have a lot of those Friday, Saturday, Sunday events.
Go ahead, Wayne.
I guess a question I've got, Dan, is, you know, and I appreciate Matt's concern. I've actually, in a former life, I hosted events there midweek, and we gobbled up all that parking space in the middle of July, and we didn't necessarily want to have kids around there. So I do have that concern that there are midweek activities, but your point's well taken. The 4 out of 7 days, there's nobody there. Or if they are, it's in and out. I guess in option number 3, if you look at that, what's the distance from the edge of that parking lot to the gravel open parking space by the skate park? How far a distance is that?
I can measure it. I'd have to get it for. I have to measure on the GIS map. I can show the aerial here. You're talking from here ultimately down to here? Correct.
Because again, you said one of the advantages of putting the park in what you think is our ideal spot is there's access to parking.
Yeah, it's right there. It's at angle parking.
Yeah. So what's the distance from where the option 3 might be to that gravel lot, which has a significant amount of space?
Yeah, I can have a couple minutes. I can measure it if you'd like to know exact footage, or I could get it for future discussion if we needed to.
Just future discussion, because again, I think one of the issues is convenience of parking when you're trying to trundle a bunch of kids to a park. I think is an absolutely critical consideration. But I think to John's point and Matt's point, we could get into some really sticky situations where people that rent the lodge think they get the park or they get the equipment as part of the rental, and I think that could create some really interesting conversations. So. I want to throw that out as a question to maybe answer down the road. If option 3 is something we want to look at, how far is it from parking? Because again, I think that's a legitimate concern.
Mm-hmm.
How about we table this till January?
Can I make a couple of comments as we're discussing this? I walk through there, I go through Bukolt Park quite frequently, and I would encourage everybody, if they have any questions about the space, to go down there yourself to take a personal look at it. What Makira did, I think, is, you know, a real reasonable thing. As she mentioned, the main entrance that's used to get into the lodge is really on that south end. And so I guess I really would like to see us promote that idea of the one that's a little bit to the north of the lodge. The other thing is that some of the events that are held down there, besides weddings, are things like family reunions. And generally there's quite a few kids involved with that. So having a playground area close to the lodge would be very helpful for those people. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't exclude other people at the same time. And then that idea of the parking area that's down near the skate park possibly being used. If you go down there in the summer, that is full of boat trailers. I mean, there is no place for anybody, for anything beyond the boat trailers. And also when there's baseball games, there's quite a bit of overflow parking. Wayne, if you go down there where that parking lot or where the horseshoe pits are and where the preferred playground area is being proposed, mm-hmm. There's probably maybe 20 angle parking spaces there. Dan, I'm not sure how many. There's quite a few parking spaces there. So I know staff has spent some time reviewing these, and if we have questions, we should take a look at it. But before we have anybody go through a lot of extra work, I think we should at least make the effort to go down there and personally check it out.
I'd say it's pretty nice and open compared to the option 3. Option 3 is you probably lose a lot of trees maybe up there. I think. That'd be the big downside. I'd because that's a really nice secluded spot up there. I love that spot. What the swing set is, you know. So
yes,
I can see both sides of it, but yeah.
It's 400 feet from the northern edge of the gravel parking lot to the asphalt approach to the lodge.
Thank you.
You know, one other point I'd like to make too. I mean, there aren't that many people live really, really close there. I mean, if they wanted playground equipment, we do have the Piffner Pioneer Park playground equipment, which, you know, is available there in back of the band shell. So, I mean, you know, people looking for playground equipment, maybe if that lodge is rented and it's real crowded, we've got alternatives too.
Yeah, and obviously this being a community park, I think no matter where we place it, you're going to see it get used very heavily. People will walk to it just like they do now. So I think this will come down to a convenience factor, and there is 2 ways of looking at it. You can look at it and say that when the lodge is rented, the parking stalls will be taken, so you're gonna have people parking further away. But if they did go for the playground, even to the 400 feet, you know, they're walking to it now. So the playground is getting used now too. So I think this will be a preference. And I think if there is a little bit of a divide on we're not certain, we can investigate it. But I think maybe a site visit would be nice. I mean, if that would work out, maybe if there's another location that you'd like me to have us kind of consider between now and next meeting. But in addition, if everyone could just take a visit down and take a look before the next meeting, and then that would allow us to still get this out for bid on time and to kind of go the route we'd like to go.
When you go down there, walk the new green circle trail path.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, it's nice to have that addition, isn't it? So should we, it's kind of sounds like there's a bit of a consensus to table this, as John had suggested, table it to the next meeting. Is that kind of the consensus, or should we have a motion to that effect, or what's your pleasure, people?
I guess I just want to ask too, if before you decide, if you want me to look at any other spot in the park.
How about people, if they take a look at, they can get back to you. Are you planning on holding a January meeting?
I would think we would. We haven't had a month off, I think, in quite a while. So.
Okay. I'll make a motion to table it until next month.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we table this item until next month. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Was there opposition? David, did you oppose? No, okay. All right, great. Thank you, Dan. Item number 7, approval of reclassification and title change for park maintenance supervisor, city forester, and facilities supervisor 1 positions.
So this item, you'll see there's a memo in the packet that outlines the process and what's been done to bring us to this point. Ultimately, every year we have an evaluation process that we go through, and that process happens typically in the fall of the year. That's why the timing of this is where it is. There's a dollar value that shows after the third-party independent consultant reviewed the updated job descriptions, and the updated job descriptions were included within the packet. So what the piece that is before the commission is the updated job description and the recommendation from the independent consultant. One housekeeping item that I have attached in here is, because we were doing the updated job descriptions and reviewing that, I made a suggestion on some title changes. That's not something that's considered with the reclass piece of it. It was just something that I recommended due to the duties and the positions themselves, as well as some comparisons of looking within the state in similar positions. So there's 2 recommendations in the memo. One is to approve of the consultant's recommendation for the reclassifications for these 3 positions, as well as the title change, which is really a housekeeping item for each position as well.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Any discussion or questions for Dan?
If not, I'll make a motion to accept.
Oh, wait, I saw David. David put his hand up. David.
Yes. I actually was going to make a motion to approve the changes. the fact of the review already having been done by Springstead makes, obviously makes it a fairly easy decision, speaking as the personnel chair. So anyway, yes, I move approval.
John, would you like to make a second on that then?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the approval of reclassification and title change for park maintenance supervisor, city forester, and facility supervisor positions, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Director's report.
Okay, on the director's report for the parks update, we're prepped for snow removal, and we're happy it's not here in a certain capacity, but we do have equipment ready to go. So we're actually working on kind of wish list items to try to get caught up on things that we put on a list and don't have time for necessarily. We're also actually having quite a bit of the park staff assist the forestry department with trimming and some removals, hauling trees, things of that nature. So we're doing some winter sports prep, basically making sure things are inspected while you can see them. But as soon as the snow comes, we're prepared to start flooding, getting the winter sports area ready to roll. So hopefully the weather will maybe cooperate with us here pretty soon, and so we can get some of those winter recreation coming. The Parks Department worked on assisting the Friends of Emerson Park to put up a signed fundraising sign install. So you probably saw a sheet of plywood that's on posts on the corner of East and Clark Street for Emerson Park. There will be a sign that's going to go up, and it'll be covered to start. And there'll be a little bit of an opening that the Friends of Emerson are planning with some opportunity to kick off their fundraising campaign. So take a look here next week. I think you'll see some really interesting updates coming out of that group. They're doing a really good job, and they've been really a great partner to work with so far. We also are accepting applications for the winter sports seasonal employees. So we're trying to get the staff lined up. So as soon as we can get open, we can. So that's the parks update. On the forestry side, we got a good grant update. The ATC tree grant, Todd was able to just got notification that $5,000 was awarded to the city. $4,000 of it will be used for planting in Emerson Park for part of the upgrade within their parks project. And $1,000 of it, we're looking at actually doing a fruit tree planting in partnership with the NCCT on that property north of Bukolt Park. So actually, Alder Dalton had talked to us about this some time ago, and we talked to the NCCT a little bit, and we think this might be a cool project that we can get a few partners involved with, and Todd's kind of spearheading that, where we can hopefully plant some fruit trees and then bear some harvest here down the road and tie that in. So that was a great notice of an additional grant. We're beginning to do their small tree pruning this year. We try to prune the trees for the first 10 years of their life with structural pruning and some preemptive training pruning. That way it should lead to less trimming and necessary later when it gets to be a mature tree. We do have some rotational pruning going though with the larger trees with our forestry staff as well. Our Tree City USA application and growth awards have been submitted for this year via Todd as well. And then Todd and the forestry staff worked with the Audubon Society to put another seed application down in Kazakuski Park out in the Prairie area. So hopefully we'll have a good catch on that for next year as well. And then on some playground things, we did a slide replacement at Cash Playground, and then new wood chips were put in at Conifer Park Playground here recently as well. Tennis season is really, they've gotten every ounce of it this year. We are going to take nets down on the Monday, the 7th. So we held out as long as we could, but it's starting to get to the point where I think they'll play till the snow hits, but the 7th is what we said we're going to take them down. So they're actually out there playing tonight. The lights are on here yet.
Thank you for that.
The KB Willett Arena, we were able to get through the whole first session of Learn to Skate, knock on wood, and it went really well. We had an excess of 100 some participants, 140 I think that took part in that. So really kudos to the staff with all of the protocol they put in place, spreading things out. The second session is registering. We're continuing all the protocol. Reviewing even some of the things that went well, things we can improve, and we'll be doing that here in December. The flooring project, that was a capital project we were finishing up for 2020, is now complete. So when it's safe for us to do a tour again, we'll try to get the commission in there to see that new flooring in the lower level. The Live Barn streaming service, if you recall that contract that was approved, we should have that up and running. We're hoping here in December as well. Just getting in time here for the games. Last night was the first game of Pacelli High School at the Willett Arena. They are still allowing the 50 fans, 25 from both teams, and following our protocol. Spash will be there the first night tomorrow. They are not having fans, and we still have the maximums on the building, so that the first games were this week. We do have, on the administrative side of things, we're working on some of the 21 projects already. We discovered as we started working through the permitting for the new bathroom in Iverson Park that it's located in the floodplain. You're all aware of that if you've been down there in the spring. That's going to require us to do a hydraulic and hydrology study in order to build in that area. So we're working through that process. It's going to require another review and probably a consultant. We're meeting with our permitting department and with Director Groholski and his staff. They require that study to make sure that we build it appropriately and don't impact the way that the water works down there. So we'll be reviewing that, working through that, but that's going to delay that slightly to make sure that we follow all of our permit requirements and do what's appropriate here for that area of the city. One other item is that I discovered and learned that the Village of Park Ridge removed the pledge that they make annually to the Parks Department. They've been doing $2,400 for quite some time to the Parks Department for as an annual kind of contribution to our park system. I did speak with every one of their village trustees and their village president. You've probably seen in the news, they've got a number of things going on over there. And what I've been told is that this would be a 1-year item that they're looking to review mid-year next year. There's a chance they could do something, but they had some tough budget decisions to make, and this was one of them. With that in mind, I asked if they'd be willing to let me come make a presentation and try to renew that partnership as soon as possible so I can offer them updates of what we're doing. I did make them aware of the bathroom, and they all seemed agreeable to let me do that, coming up here in 21, but I wanted to make you aware. Some history on that, and several of you probably remember, I guess the town of Hall used to make a similar contribution, and that went away at one time. So I do intend in January to bring back a discussion item just to talk about non-residents and how we want to handle that as we look forward. Because, if those fees have gone away, that's a revenue source we used to have. I think it's worth a discussion just of, do we stay status quo, or are we looking at anything different procedurally from our standpoint? So I want to make sure you guys knew that was something that was coming up. Aside from that, we were just waiting for cold weather. So that is the director's report.
Thank you, Dan. I hope that you really follow up on this Park Ridge donation. It always kind of rubs me the wrong way. When Park Ridge had their 50th anniversary as a village, they held the celebration down in Iverson Park. And I know a number of people that live out there, and they treat Iverson Park like it's their backyard or their own park. So I certainly hope, I know there's a lot of civic-minded people that live in Park Ridge. I would think there certainly would be community support there to contribute something to Iverson Park. So hope we can make a little bit more of a splash with it when this comes up for an item. Thank you. Sue.
I just wanted to second what you said, Liz, because that's Iverson Park. I do go there quite a bit, and that's the part where the middle school kids are coming down from Park Ridge, and they live in Park Ridge, and they're vandalizing and throwing the benches into the river and everything. And so, pardon me, I have a cold. But yeah, that's been a problem with like Liz said, that they think that that's their park, and they don't understand that they're not paying taxes for those. For that. But I think they should do something to help to support it.
I agree. Thank you, Sue. Mm-hmm. Anybody else have any comments or questions for Dan regarding any of the items in the director's report? Okay. All right, looks like we can move on to adjournment. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Videos of these meetings are available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.